You know that person who, no matter how hard you try, never seems to give you the value you deserve? Yes, we insist, we do everything we can to please them, but deep down we know there's no going back. So the time has come to learn one very important thing in life, to disappear from the lives of those who don't love you. And no, it's not easy, but it is liberating. First of all, stop for a second and think. Why are you still there? Out of habit? Afraid of loneliness? Look, I understand. But the reality is that continuing to insist will only hurt you more. And you know what's worse? The other person doesn't even realize how much it affects you. And frankly, anyone who doesn't realize that you're there, giving your all, deserves nothing more than your silence. The first thing you need to do to disappear from someone's life is basically to disappear for real. And I'm not talking about making a scene, deleting numbers, blocking social networks with indirect posts. No, it's disappearing from the soul, internally. That person no longer has space inside you. No more checking profiles, waiting for messages, or remembering moments that deep down only hurt you. Another thing, let go of expectations. This is gold. The more expectations you create, the more you become attached to the other person. Stop imagining that one day they'll change, that they'll realize and come back to you. Spoiler, they won't. The person who really loves you doesn't make you feel invisible. They put you at the center of their life. And if that's not what's happening, why insist? Be strong. I know, the longing beats, the heart squeezes, the head gets confused, but it will pass. What won't pass is the time you waste insisting on someone who has already made it clear, one way or another, that they don't want to give you the love you deserve. Disappearing from the life of someone who doesn't love you is an act of self-love. It's finally choosing yourself. And when you do, the relief is immediate. Because then you understand that you don't need anyone to be complete. You already are. And the right person will realize this without you having to wear yourself out. Then you disappear. Not to punish the other person, but to free yourself. After all, what's worth more? Your peace, or the wear and tear of trying to be important to someone who doesn't see you? The choice is yours alone. Why are you still insisting? Starting with the most important question. Why continue with something that no longer brings happiness? Sometimes we cling to relationships or situations simply because we don't have the courage to let go. Insisting on someone who doesn't love you is a form of self-sabotage. It's as if we don't believe we deserve more, And that's a big lie. You're not here to beg for love, much less to be someone's last option. If you realize that you're not being reciprocated, it's time to stop and think. What exactly keeps you in this situation? Habit? Fear of being alone? The idea that this person is the only one who will understand you? None of this justifies submitting to emotional contempt. The worst thing is that the more you insist, the more you lose respect for yourself. It's like an emotional prison where you've put the bars on yourself. And do you know what's most painful? Deep down, the person you're wearing yourself out for probably doesn't even notice. Or worse, notices and doesn't care. And you're still there, trying to be noticed, trying to change something that, frankly, can no longer be fixed. Recognizing this is the first step towards letting go and beginning the process of emotional disappearance. To understand that you are invisible to this person. As much as it hurts to admit it, sometimes we become invisible to those we most want to be seen by. When you try your hardest to please, to be present, and the other person just doesn't care? That's one of the most frustrating situations there is. And you know what's worse? No matter how much you do, if someone doesn't see you now, they're unlikely to see you later. It's hard to realize, but it's liberating. The sooner you understand that you don't have the power to force anyone to love or appreciate you, the easier it will be to let go. It's not about whether you're enough or not. The point is that, for this person, you're not on the radar. And we need to stop chasing someone who doesn't want to see us. The focus from now on is on you. Whether they see you or not doesn't change the fact that you have value. What does change is how you react to this indifference. Disappearing from within, the importance of emotional detachment. Disappearing from someone's life is not just about disappearing physically, but also, and perhaps above all, about disappearing emotionally. There's no point in blocking the person on all social networks and, at the same time, thinking about them all the time. True detachment begins inside your mind. And believe me, that's the hardest part. The mind is tricky. It loves to cling to memories and nurture hopes that, in practice, no longer make sense. That's why emotional detachment requires discipline. When you start to notice that you're spending too much time thinking about the person, it's time to turn your thoughts away. It may sound silly, but changing your focus helps a lot. Over time, the person will stop being the center of your attention. Getting out of your head also means stopping creating expectations. We love to imagine that the person will change, that they'll regret it, that they'll realize how incredible you are. But I'll tell you, that rarely happens. And if it does, you won't care anymore. Because emotional detachment will have already freed you. The mistake of waiting for a change that never comes, expecting the other person to change, is a trap we all fall into at some point. We think that if we keep insisting, if we show how good we are, the person will wake up and finally realize what they're missing. But spoiler, this rarely happens. If the person hasn't appreciated you so far, they're unlikely to change their mind. It's that old story. You can't force someone to love you. True love comes spontaneously. The big issue here is that we get caught up in false hope, and that's exhausting. Waiting for someone who has already made it clear that they are not interested not only takes up your time, but also drains your energy. It's an expectation that never materializes, and the longer you wait, the deeper you sink into a cycle of disappointment. The person won't change, and if they do, you will have changed too, for the better. The value of silence, how it speaks louder than words. When you decide to disappear from someone's life, one of the most powerful things you can do is simply remain silent. And not the silence of someone waiting for a reaction, but the silence of someone who has truly freed themselves. Sometimes we think we need a big farewell speech, a final explanation, or even one last attempt to be heard. But do you know what really has an impact? Silence. Silence shows that you are no longer investing energy in that relationship. And that act speaks much more than any words could. The person who didn't value you will feel your absence in a way they never felt your presence. And that's the point. You're not disappearing to provoke a reaction, but because you finally understood that you deserve more. Absence is powerful because it is definitive. And over time, you'll also realize how much peace silence brings. Take care of yourself. The power of redirecting your energy. When you decide to disappear from the life of someone who doesn't love you, something incredible happens. All the energy you were spending on that person now becomes available to you. It's as if a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. And it's at this moment that you have the chance to reconnect with yourself. It's time to take care of who matters most, you. Redirecting this energy can mean many things. It could mean investing more time in hobbies you enjoy, taking care of your physical and mental health, or even dedicating yourself to new experiences and relationships. The important thing to remember is that all the energy you were putting into someone who didn't love you back now belongs to you. And that's one of the most liberating things there is. Little by little, you'll realize that you don't need anyone to feel complete. When you prioritize yourself, everything changes. Confidence returns, self-love flourishes, and that emptiness you felt begins to disappear. The healing process. Understand that it will hurt, but it will pass. Disappearing from someone's life isn't easy, and it's important to be realistic about the process. It will hurt, especially at the beginning. When you decide to cut ties with someone, it's normal to feel a sense of emptiness, even a lack of the person. But the good news is that it will pass. The pain you feel now is temporary and is part of the healing process. At first, the longing may be strong, and the temptation to go back, to send a message, or to try one more time will appear. But that's where you need to be strong. Remember why you made the decision in the first place. The pain of walking away from someone who doesn't love you is temporary, but the benefit of getting rid of a relationship that hurts you is long-lasting. Over time, that wound will heal, and the space that person occupied in your mind and heart will be filled with things that really do you good. Rebuilding your identity without the other person. One of the biggest challenges when you disappear from someone's life is rediscovering yourself without them. Often, when we're in a relationship, or even an unrequited obsession, our identity gets mixed up with that of the other person. We begin to define ourselves through the other person, be it through their tastes, habits, or even the way they treat us. When this ends, there can be a feeling of, what now? Who am I without this person? The answer is, you are much more than the relationship you had with that person. This is the perfect time to rediscover yourself. Explore your passions, reconnect with your friends, and discover new parts of yourself that have been dormant. You will realize that you are capable of being happy and complete on your own without depending on someone else's love or approval. This rebuilding phase is liberating because, little by little, you will become the most authentic version of yourself. Learn to value those who really love you. Sometimes we blind ourselves so much trying to win the love of those who don't value us that we forget to see who is already there by our side, giving us the love and affection we deserve. It could be family, friends, or even new people you've yet to meet. When you disappear from the life of someone who doesn't love you, it's an opportunity to make room for those who really want to be in your life. The truth is that we often focus so much on what we don't have that we forget to appreciate what is right in front of our eyes. There is so much love around you, waiting to be recognized. Life becomes much lighter when you allow yourself to be loved by those who value you, instead of wasting energy on those who don't see you. Disappearing is not giving up. It's choosing yourself. Finally, it's important to understand that disappearing from someone's life is not an act of weakness or giving up. On the contrary, it's an act of courage. It's you choosing yourself, putting your peace and happiness first. And this has nothing to do with being selfish, but rather with respecting yourself enough not to accept less than you deserve. Disappearing from the life of someone who doesn't love you is a process of liberation. When you do this, you are telling the world and yourself that you will no longer accept crumbs, that you deserve true love that values you. From the moment you choose yourself, the world changes. The doors open to new experiences, new relationships, and above all, to a new version of yourself. A stronger, more aware, and much happier version. In the end, disappearing from the life of someone who doesn't love you is the greatest act of love you can do for yourself. It's not about giving up. It's about freeing yourself. To stop wearing yourself out in empty relationships and start filling yourself with what really matters. Your peace, your well-being, your value. Now that you know the power you have in your hands, the choice is yours. Will you continue to insist on someone who doesn't see you, or will you finally take the first step towards freedom? Remember, it's not about the other person, it's about you. Disappear from the lives of those who don't love you and find yourself. Life doesn't wait, and you deserve so much more. So what are you waiting for to choose yourself?